I have once again fallen for the lure of a new piece of camera gear. This time a medium format film camera that shoots the exact same negative size as my Mamiya RZ67. So why did I get it if it serves a similar purpose, and what's my initial thoughts about the camera? Let's talk about the Pentax 6x7. I picked up my new 6x7 medium format film camera not because I want to replace my Mamiya RZ67, but because I want a slightly more portable option to take with me on a trip to the US. I'm heading out to Pennsylvania for the months of June, July and August to work as a videographer for a few months out there, and whilst I'm there I want to shoot a little photo project documenting my time and my experience and my travels, and I wanted a great medium format film camera to do that with that was easier to take on a plane and take with me. That's why I settled on the Pentax 6x7. The Pentax 6x7 model that I've picked up is the second generation of Pentax 6x7, which looks identical to the original 6x7 model, but it has a mirror lockup mechanism, so I can lock the mirror in the up position essentially, which should theoretically help with mirror slap for longer exposures. This generation was sold between 1976 and 1990 when it was replaced by a third generation of Pentax 6x7, which essentially had just a few minor cosmetic changes to it. I also have a non-TTL metering prism, so there is zero form of metering in this camera. I do have to do it all manually. My first impressions of the Pentax 6x7 are that it is an absolute beast of a camera. It feels very similar to an SLR camera like my Canon A1, but just simply absolutely supersized. It is pretty huge, but it's big in a very different way to my Mamiya RZ67. The RZ67 I had to hold with both hands when using, and it feels quite clunky to use at times, particularly when out and about walking with it, unless I add that eye-level viewfinder and a side handle, which just significantly adds a lot of weight to the camera. The Pentax just feels great to use straight away, just like using a heavier and larger SLR system. I did pick up a small 3D printed handle that attaches to the strap lugs on the right hand side, and it honestly makes holding the camera an absolute breeze. I could quite happily walk around holding this camera without a strap, just with this little grip for a decent amount of time. I might get a left-hand grip from the same Etsy seller as well to accompany this, or maybe one day I'll pick up the pretty famous left-hand wooden grip as well. I have shot a couple of test rolls through the camera just to test out the usability, the sharpness and the contrast of the lens and what it was like to use the viewfinder. So before I talk about the camera as a whole and the shooting experience, let's check out just a few of the images that I shot. The images overall I was very happy with. They were just from a couple little walks that I took locally, as I said. The weather in general around me has not been particularly exciting for a very long time now, and so the light hasn't been particularly inspiring or conducive to photography that I want to take and use. And again, these rolls were mainly just to check that the camera did work fully and that there's no issues with the body or the lens at all. The lens is definitely nice and sharp. The 6x7 negatives are obviously absolutely huge and give a great amount of detail, and the lenses are perfect for resolving that. There's very little to no vignetting in the corners of the images, and with this 75mm lens you're actually able to create a really good amount of separation between the foreground and the background when shooting wide open at apertures like f4.5. I know that there is an f2.8 version as well that would clearly be even better at this. And just to note, all of the images in this video were shot on Portra 160. I recently did a little exposure test with the Portra 160, so if you're interested in that, I'll leave a little card at the top up there or wherever it is, and a link down in the description. In terms of usability and the shooting process, the Pentax feels really great to use. The shutter speed dial is super tactile and satisfying to turn without worrying that you may accidentally move it mid-shot. The shutter advance is right by where the thumb naturally sits when holding the camera, and so it's incredibly easy to quickly advance the film. The shutter sound is also incredibly satisfying, albeit unbelievably loud. It's quite a famous shutter sound. You will get some looks when shooting with this camera. It is just unavoidably noisy, and that's really all that you have to use on the camera body to shoot. The lens that I have is the Pentax 75mm f4.5, the newest version of that lens, which is about a 35mm focal length equivalent on a 35mm film camera, which I personally really enjoy shooting with. It's by no means a premium lens. As I said, there is an f2.8 version of the 75mm which looks amazing but is also incredibly expensive. I'd love to shoot with it one day, but this f4.5 has produced awesomely sharp results so far, and I'm looking forward to testing out more and hopefully picking up some more lenses as well for the Pentax in the future. The aperture ring on the lens is again very tactile, very lovely to use. It has a minimum aperture of f22 and a maximum aperture of f4.5 with half stops between these also. The focus ring is incredible. Honestly, it's probably the smoothest focus ring I've ever used on a camera, and it has a very long focus throw too, so it's easy to minutely adjust your focus. I wish that every lens that I use, particularly on my video cameras, focused just like this Pentax 6x7 lens. Loading the film is super easy, and also because you can't use interchangeable backs with the camera, there's obviously no need for a dark slide, which is handy because I will always forget to take that out of my RZ67. The viewfinder is a little bit dark, and I did have a few focusing issues, mainly because I'm quite blind, if I'm honest. When I'm wearing particularly my contact lenses, I do sometimes struggle to nail focus, at least critical focus, without the use of a magnifier, but it does have a split prism in the center of the viewfinder, which definitely helps with the focusing, but I do wish that it was a little bit brighter. In terms of framing though, the viewfinder does seem to give great coverage of the final composition. I don't feel like I'm missing anything from the corners of the viewfinder or gaining anything. It feels pretty representative of what is going to be printed on that negative. Overall, I'm excited to use the camera a little bit more before my trip out to the US to really get accustomed to it, and I'm certain that it is the right 6x7 camera to take with me. It's far more portable and quicker to use and just feels a lot easier handheld than the Mamiya RZ67. I think it's more suited to landscapes, which is largely what I'm going to be shooting out there. It's not, the ultra portable 6x7 camera like a Mamiya 7 or a Plauble Machina 6.7, but for the price I paid, it's definitely a better option than my Mamiya. I will be keeping the Mamiya though, because I do absolutely love shooting portraits with that camera, and that's definitely something I want to do more of going forward, so that will always be the camera that I turn to first when I'm looking to shoot some medium format portraits. But so far, just really enjoyed the experience with the Pentax 6.7. If you enjoyed the video, please feel free to leave a like, and if you've got any thoughts on the Pentax 6.7 or the video as a whole, please do leave them down in the comments section. If you've got tips for using the camera, perhaps you've used it for years, please do part those little nuggets of wisdom with me. I would greatly appreciate any tips that you may have about the camera, and maybe feel free to subscribe if you like my content and want to see some more from me in the future. Stay safe, stay happy everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.